welcome back to the channel. I'm Callie, and today I think this is technically my last wrap-up-y video from 2023. I think it is February now, so I should probably shift a little bit, but I was really excited about doing this video because I read so many series, just so many. So I really wanted to create a video where I grabbed all the series that I finished in 2023, and it was a lot more than I thought it was. I didn't really expect, I know I read a lot of series, but this pile, way bigger than I thought. So what I did is I grabbed all the first books of the books that I owned, and I'm just going to, because there's so many, I'm just going to talk about how I thought about the series overall and an overall rating of it. I'm going to start with the two series that I do not own. I read these all on Kindle. I just don't own them. I actually read a lot of series on Kindle, but I ended up either getting at least the first book or the whole series in some cases. So the first one is the Mindfuck series by St. Abbey. Overall, for series, it's a 5-book series, I believe. They're all really short, 200 and less pages. 5-book series, I think I mentioned that already, but 4.5 stars for this entire series. It is about an FBI agent who is tracking a serial killer, and then he has a romance with a woman who happens to be said serial killer. So really fun, just wildly hysterical book. And the second one of books that I do not own is the Dragons of Umbra series by Emma Hamm. This is again a 5-book series. These ones also aren't very long. They're about 350 and shorter. I would give this 3.5 stars. It got very repetitive throughout the middle. Some of the books didn't feel necessary, but overall a very fun dragon-centered romantasy. All right, now those are the only two series that I didn't own at least one book of. The rest of these I own. So the first one is a duology, and that is Goddess in the Machine by Laura Beth Johnson. This is a sci-fi duology, and my overall rating for this, I would say, is about a 4. It's fun, it's a little weird, and it's a little hard to get into, but the story is very cool and all centered around one of sci-fi's main tropes, which is what makes humanity humanity. Next up, I have kind of a twofold one. I finished the These Violent Delights duology by Chloe Gong, as well as its subsequent duology, the Foul Lady Fortune duology. These are both magic-y-esque, centered in 1920s and 1930s Shanghai. Very Romeo and Juliet. I'm sure this is some Shakespearean retelling that I could not tell you off the top of my head. Overall, for all, I think this is a total, both of these are duologies, so 4 books. And there are 2 novellas, so I'd say 4.5 books. I'd give it a solid 4 stars. Very fun, very whimsical, and really great atmosphere. Another 2 series that I finished that are kind of connected. I finished the White Hot Kiss series, which I believe is the Dark Elements series by Jennifer L. Armentrout, as well as the Storm and Fury. This is the Dark Harbinger series. So these are both of these are 3-book series, roughly 300 to 350 pages each. The White Hot Kiss series, I think I would give 3.5 stars. It was fun, it was spicy, it just felt very 2010s YA, which isn't a bad thing, but it just felt a little aged. The Storm and Fury trilogy, or the Dark Harbinger, I would give more of a solid 4, just because this one felt a lot fresher and really fun. Now, take this with a grain of salt. I read this series first, and then learned that this came first and was connected. So definitely read it in the wrong order, but I had so much fun. JLA's writing style is just really fun, really romantic, and I just enjoy reading her books. They're quick, they're easy, and they're just a lot of fun. Definitely look into them if you're looking to kind of get into maybe a little bit of romantasy. They're more modern, in a modern setting, so there's a lot less to learn, but there are a ton of fantasy elements to them. Next, I finished the Beautiful series by Renee Ahdieh. This is a 4-book series following 1980s-ish New Orleans. This is vampires, fae, whole bunch of other magical creatures. I would give this more of probably a 3 as a series overall. This was originally supposed to be a duology, and I think it should have stayed a duology. The last 2 books felt weird to incorporate into this as a series. We lost all of the main two characters that we follow in the first two books, which usually I don't have an issue with. However, all of their character development and relationship development went just yeeted out the window in the last two books. And then the last book, The Ruin, just felt really, really rushed. So I preferred it if it would have just stayed The Beautiful and The Ruined. Or sorry, The Beautiful and The Damned. The other two were just, they felt too extra for me. Up next, I have the Wings of Ebony series by JL. This is a 2-book series. Again, set in a modern setting, but with magic, secret worlds, black culture, black history. Really fascinating world. Wings of Ebony was one of my favorite books of 2021, 2022, whenever this book came out. Loved this book immediately when I read it. Even got to like chat with JL for a little bit, just because I was obsessed with it and her world. Very amazing human being. However, a series as a whole, I would give it, I teeter between like a 3.75 and a 4, because Wings of Ebony was just so good, but Ashes of Gold just didn't have the same impact as Wings of Ebony did. So I did not care for the sequel, but this had such a great setup and build into this world and great characters. I just feel like a lot of that kind of got lost in Ashes of Gold, unfortunately. Next, I have the Fallen World series by Laura Thalassa. This is actually the entire series. I have the bind-up. Actually ended up finding this on one of her like scavenger hunts at a Polycon a couple years ago, which was super fun. Just kind of got off the elevator and found this thing lying on the ground, signed. It was wonderful. This is a very strange, dark, dystopian. It's not fantasy, so it's more of like a romance sci-fi. That's the best way I can describe it. I really enjoyed this. I give it a solid 4. The world is really cool. The way the dystopian aspect is really cool. The science is really cool. Definitely not plausible, but really cool. And just the actual, like, plot devices that Laura Thalassa uses in this is just fascinating. And I ended up devouring this entire tome in, like, a night because I was just so fascinated as to where everything was going. Up next, I have the, ooh, this one's shiny, The Bright and the Pale by Jessica Rubinkowski. This is a 2-book series inspired by Russian folklore. The atmosphere is really fascinating in this series. I would give the duology itself probably a 3.5, 3.75. The world is really cool. The atmosphere is built very well. And it's just a fun story. However, the second book got a little bogged down, I think, with second book syndrome. She's trying to force us to the end, force us to the answers, which just didn't feel great. But overall, it was fun. And you just feel cold while reading these series. So she, 10 out of 10 on the atmosphere scale. I have This Poison Heart duology by Kaylin Byron. I really like this duology. 4.5 stars for both these books. They were perfectly perfectly paced, I think is the word I'm going for. They are really fun. The magic is really cool, set in a modern world, with fantastic black culture, queer representation, and just overall fun, interesting story, as well as this really neat incorporation of Greek history and mythology. So it was a really cool twist with both of how history can warp stories and how myths come about. Very fascinating. Would recommend this one, 10 out of 10. Next, I have The Echoes and Empires duology by Morgan Rose. This is a 2-book series. This is a very big deviation from her other series, The Fallen Kingdoms. This is rich girl versus street rat romance, as well as an Indiana Jones-esque hunt for artifacts. And it's just, this was very fascinating. I would say this is like a solid 3.75 to 4. It was really interesting. Book 2 kind of let me down with all of the archaeological and Indiana Jones-ness that was set up and explored within this book. And the characters just felt like completely different people in book 2. The next one that I have is the Deliciously Dark Fairy Tale series, which starts with The Ruin of Roses by K.F. Breene. This is a 4-book series based off of Beauty and the Beast. This has got fae, it's got magic, it's got dragons. It has literally everything in it. It is so spicy, and this is just so much fun. 4 stars. Really fun. The books at the end got a little long, which is why I wouldn't give this 5 stars, but if you're looking for a good time with lots of smut, Ta-da! Up next, I have the There Will Come a Darkness series. This is a 3-book series by Katie Rose Poole. I give this, again, 4.5 stars out of 5. This trilogy was so perfectly paced. We have a lot of characters to keep track of, but it never feels bogged down or too much or info dumpy. It is straight to the point. We have a great story being told. And from multiple perspectives, we have several plot lines going on at once, but they all eventually connect. And it is really well written and just a grand time. The ending was perfect. And I just devoured this entire series. Next, I have A Song of Wraith and Ruin duology by Roseanne A. Brown. I give this 4.5 out of 5. Both these books were so perfect. Song of Wraith and Ruin explores a really cool fantasy world. We've got dark genies, essentially, and we've got curses, we have necromancy, and we have fantastic mental health representation, which is amazing. And both books were perfectly paced, and I just had such a good time reading this story. I fell into the world. Up next, I have what is probably my favorite series overall that I read in 2020, and that is The Madoran Chronicles by Lynette Noni, which starts with Akarne. This is a portal fantasy story where a young girl just drops out of a portal from our world into our world, very much technologically and societally, but with magic. I love this series so much. It is a 6.5 book series. I love long series, but nothing ever felt unneeded. None of those 6 books felt bogged down. I'm using that term a lot, I guess. None of them had the second book syndrome or felt too info dumpy. Everything was perfectly placed. 5 stars this entire series. It's just such a good series and has definitely, I already loved Lynette Noni, which is why I grabbed this series, and at least the first one, and fell in love with it immediately. And I read this, I devoured it. I loved every single second, every single book of this entire series. Next, I have the Gilded Wolves trilogy by Roshani Chachki. This is a 3-book series, and I give this one 4.25. Not quite 4.5. 4.25, 4.3. Every single one of these books was great. However, there was always this weird lull near the end. Not quite, like a little bit after the middle, like 3/4 into each of these books, there was this weird lull that I had to almost trudge through. But I really loved this story. It's really cool. We have a setting in France. We have a setting in Russia. And I think the last one's in Italy. All in these 1800s steampunky world with magic, and all of the characters are amazing. This has one of the best found family tropes I have ever read. And it's just, I had such a blast with this series. Like I said, it was just that like little lull right at like the 3/4 line in each one of these books that just never quite made it to a 5-star read. Up next, I have the Aurelian Cycle by Rosaria Munda, which starts with Fireborn. This is a 3-book series all about dragon riders. This is so cool. I love the premise of this. I gave this entire series, I think I gave each one of these 4 stars. Very solid, very fun, and it's a really cool concept because we're taking after what is usually the end of a story, the aftermath effect, after the big revolution has happened. They have succeeded. Now, this is the now, what do we do? How do we run a country book? It was so fascinating to see how that worked and how you can still see the seeds of corruption and everything. And then you threw in dragon training, dragon riding, dragon competitions. Really cool. For me, similar to the Gilded Wolves, there was always kind of a lull, but for here it was in the beginning that you kind of, a lot of information dumping that you just kind of had to trudge through. But overall, if you like dragons, competitions, if you're looking for something like Fourth Wing, but not as steamy and completed, I would definitely recommend the Aurelian Cycle. Next, I have the Gilded Duology by Marissa Meyer. This is her 2-book Rumpelstiltskin retelling. I was a little nervous to jump back into Marissa Meyer after how much I hated Instant Karma, but Gilded, and with the retelling of fairy tales in a new and fresh manner, is where Marissa Meyer thrives. I gave this series 4.5 stars. This was a lot of fun. It was really cool. It was a good twist on the story where I didn't necessarily constantly predict what was going to happen. I did have a few predictions that did come true, but with a retelling that's kind of expected. Overall, really liked this duology, and it worked perfectly as a duology as well. It tied up nicely in a bow and just worked. Next, I have the Incendiary or Hollow Crown duology by Zoraida Cordova. This is a really interesting, because again, very much like Fireborn, this is like after the revolution or like near the end of the revolution, and we have a prisoner of war who is now working for the other side. It is really interesting. I give this solid 4 stars. Both books were really interesting. I liked how everything ended up getting tied together. And the character growth across the 2 books was so well written. For me, the issues lied in, I kept getting in and out with the pacing, as well as the atmosphere it didn't really vibe well, is the best way I can describe it. But I was here for the character development. It was phenomenal. Up next, I have the Frost and Nectar duology by C.N. Crawford. This is a 2-book series, and this is just a fun, fae romantasy duology that I ended up reading on my Kindle. I have copies of it because I got it at a Polycon because I met C.N. Crawford, which is a married couple, which is so fascinating, and I love how that duo works. This is just super fun. This was a Hunger Games, but for the hand of a fae king, and she is essentially like a changeling. And this was just really fun, fast-paced. Both books were fascinating to read, and I just flew through them. I'd give this series a solid 4 star. Just solid 4. Next, I have the Sky Hunter duology by Marie Lu. This is one of her newer series. This is a two-book series that is very sci-fi fantasy-esque. I would give this about 3 stars. I kept finding myself getting bored and just like reading the book, but not reading the book. Like, my eyes were doing the movement, no information was going into my brain. I was just bored, so I ended up skipping a little bit, especially in the second book. It just kind of dragged too long, so I would say a solid 3 stars for this one. We are almost done. I have 2 series left, I swear. The next one I'm going to talk about is the Winter's Promise series, which is also known as the Mirror Visitor series. This is a 4-book series that is actually translated from French to English, and I would give this 3 stars. The first 2 books, 2.5, were really interesting. I loved the deep political intrigue, as well as the fascinating and unique magic system and like land system. However, the last 2 books really lost me, because like the way the story went was so weird and random, and I never felt like we got a resolution to the end of the series. So the last 2 books kind of ruined it for me. I almost DNF'd both of them. But I really, really liked books 1 and 2. So I don't know if it's a translation issue, which is my best guess as to what happened there, is it just didn't translate the way that it probably should have from the original French. So one of my goals is to reread this series in the original French, and maybe it's better. The last one that I have is the Kingdom of the Wicked series by Kerri Maniscalco. I loved this series. 5 star. I realize that is probably slightly controversial. However, I loved it. It is a really great way to go from young adult to new adult to adult with each passing book. It was super fun to see that progression. I was really nervous because I've read her Stalking Jack the Ripper series, and after book 2, she completely lost me. However, I think she has found her stride with Romantasy. This is really cool. This is a personification of the 7 deadly sins, as well as witchery magic in medieval Italy. Loved every second of this. It was so much fun. Like I said, 5 stars. Also would recommend the audiobook. They were fantastic. These are all of the series that I read in 2023. I read a lot of series. I finished a lot of series that have been on my TBR for ages, because what I end up doing is I reread all of the ones prior so that I can have all of the information stored up in my brain to finish out the series. I did not include any reread series that I did, nor did I include any series where I am technically fully caught up on the series. If the series is not complete, it's not on this list. So, did a lot of that, but hopefully I will be able to have a similar stack for 2024 because I just love series. They're a lot of fun. So with that, that's going to be the end of today's video. Please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel down below. Let me know what your favorite series just overall is, and I will see you guys in our next video. Bye!